Hello.
Hi. It's
Well,
always a good sign when you can start with a laugh, right?
wow. Yeah. No, it's funny. I was set, and then for some reason, I keep getting these text messages, and it's just, and my computer gets this message on that's arriving on my phone. So all of these dinging sounds like I need to curb this before I have a conversation with you. Because, yeah.
I have the same problem where it's just too many fucking forms of communication and technology in our lives where it's literally like you're grabbing your phone, but you're on your laptop, but like somebody could knock at your door and you're just like, I,
Yeah, no, it comes from all angles and levels, and it's just like, okay, I just need to like shut off my little text message machine and let it do its thing and not have it interrupt the conversation because I was like, no, it's not happening.
yeah. You don't want to have somebody being like, but we really want to sell you aluminum siding. Um,
Yeah.
So first of all, thank you so much for being on Make Your Own Fun. And I am going to try to pronounce this because you probably have the most exotic name I've ever heard. It's
Really?
so
Wow.
like free
Exciting.
flowing. So let me try this. Here, I actually had to write it down because I'm like, I want to make sure I get all three of your assassin names down right. I have Erica Plouffe
Yep.
Lazure.
You got it. You're on it.
French lessons and everything now coming back being useful after being all this time in LA. Have you ever heard of the old video game Where in the World is Carmen San Diego?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Your name sounds like some exotic jewel thief that she's got to go on the trail to find. I thought that was like such a great um, like compliment to you because it's just such an exotic name. Like literally, if I saw that on a book cover, which I have now, I would go, well, I want to know who wrote this because I just want to know who this person is.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I'm glad the name intrigues. It's funny they're both French Canadian names, so they don't seem particularly exotic, and neither does uh Canada particularly. It's when I was little, I knew I had like my grandparents spoke French and my dad spoke a little bit of French, and so I just assumed that we were French from France. And as I grew older and started learning about my family history, I was like, oh, we're actually from Canada. So it's just,
You know, you're gonna laugh. When I moved, I lived in several different states, but I'm originally from Ohio, which of course is right across the lake from Canada. So anywhere I moved away from Ohio, people just assumed I was Canadian. And it's not like I have that really thick a boot or a or anything like that. But like when I, for example, when I lived in Georgia, people would just say, you need to slow down. You're talking way too fast. And I said, wait a minute, I'm not from New York or anything.
Mhm.
And then when I moved to LA years ago, I thought, yeah, those years of French are useless because everything is Spanish.
It
Like
sure is.
across the board, like I'm going to need to learn more than the Taco Bell menu. This is really horrible. Um,
That's really funny because I took middle and high school French and then immediately switched to independently studying Spanish. And I continue to study Spanish. I'm on day 641 of Duolingo. So I'm
oh,
super
was
proud
that
of
started one of your lockdown?
pandemic project. Yeah. Yeah.
So many people got into so much stuff, and I think that's so great because, and I've said this in a few other interviews. I said during that entire horrible time, I want to say last year, but 2020, um, you're really only left with yourself. So
Hmm.
you know, after a while, it's just you don't want to talk on the phone, you don't want to text. Everybody has just become zombified with these Zoom chats. At least, you know, with our show, we try to make it fun. And literally, I tell people, or we have had people just show up in their pajamas with their coffee mug and just be like, "What's up?"
Awesome.
Oh, so this is the one I was talking about. This is the one I use in all the shows.
That's good. Oh, for sake.
Or it's a
No, I know, I get it.
you're like the third person that's done that, and I'm like,
I thought you were really into Japanese liqueur, but no.
like, uh,
I get
Somebody else did that joke and the same thing happened. I'm like, no, oh,
it.
because it's such an obvious thing that when somebody is like sake, and I'm like, oh, I see what you did there. So, yeah, your website's pretty great, pretty eclectic. I see that not just the writing, but you do some artwork and designing as well. So tell me a little bit about that. Is that something that's always been the case, or just something else you started during the pandemic?
So, yeah, it's funny. I would say my first love is art and drawing, and but I don't know. It's just been kind of part of what I've always done, and I never really thought of it as something that I needed to focus on or like pay attention to. And then it's funny, at some point in the middle of the I don't know, last spring sometime, all of a sudden the art started getting really interesting, and I don't know, I just like every day I was drawing. Like I'd be sitting through Zoom meetings at, faculty meetings and stuff. And I'd start doodling, and the doodling kind of took on a new life of its own. And so, yeah, the drawing became a bit of a creative outlet that I have always had in like my bank of things I love to do. And it was really fascinating and satisfying to see it kind of come front and center and take on this life of its own. And I had a chance this summer to take it was called narrative design or narrative illustration at Mass Art, and I was able to illustrate a couple of my flash pieces. So take different sentences and like find a way to think about those stories in a very different way, because the story on the page became something entirely different, where you got insight into the other characters who were being referenced in the story because I was drawing them. And all of a sudden there was one story that I wrote that I could see that the narrator, how full of shit she was, because you could see like the suffering of the sister, and she kept like convincing herself that what she was doing was fine, and all of a sudden it became, you could see the sister got her side of the story out through the visual component. And I thought it was really really neat to play with what goes on in the visual narrative versus strictly written narrative, and the possibilities of how a writer can stretch their creative,
Or
you
just
know,
an artist across the board?
yeah.
One compliment I really wanted to give to the artwork when I was going through it is it had kind of this really esoteric kind of almost wood engraving feel to it. And I thought, I don't know anything about, your upbringing or childhood, but it had a real kind of almost Native American kind of feel and texture to it, where it's um, also almost kind of like hieroglyphics, where each square or each piece of art in itself was telling a story. I thought that was really outstanding.
Thank you. That's really, really nice to hear. I, don't have that I'm aware of, have much knowledge of that style of art, but yeah, I do feel like, I had a pens with a lot of different textures to it, and widths. And once you start working with like a pen like this is like, no, no, I can't even look at a pen like this unless I'm and I had like my little like set of like Micron pens, like from 0.003, which is like the little wispy lines, to like a 12, which is just like a very heavy, weighty line that's like very juicy and fun to play with. And
Very
I think
juicy,
that's
yeah.
what you were seeing, that like the way a carver would like kind of dip in a little bit on the thin side, and then like there'd be like a thickness to it. And so I think maybe that's what you're seeing, is that carving quality.
It
I
also
don't.
kind of begs the question too. Have you ever, either yourself or maybe with other artists, had any kind of gallery showings for just your work, your artwork?
No, I haven't done much with that. I think
Think
there's a
about
part,
it. I'm just
I
saying.
know, yeah, there's a part
Sounds
of
like
me
who has
that's
the time to do everything, but
that, well, I want to do it, and then, and then like, oh, I have to like edit this story
oh, I
collection.
have to get up and put clothes on and like not freak out
Oh
like
my
the
gosh.
Amazon guy when he drops off like 40 packages of food and
Yeah,
everything.
and my job, I work at a boarding school, and so it's like, it's like a 70-hour a week job. It's just one of those like it's all encompassing. And so
A lot of take home work.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. So it's a busy time, but it's something that it's kind of on the shelf a little bit, something that I would love to be able to pursue and do something with at some point. But uh, my sense is that with like shows, like you need frames and you need to, like there's a lot of logistics. Like once you've done the art, like then you've got to like make the
You would
logistics.
think, I mean, it sounds complicated, but I think it's all a matter of using social media and putting the word out there because chances are, especially through the school that you're involved with or your friends, someone knows someone who does something similar or can guide you in the direction of something like that.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think that your website is a really good starting place because um, I'm sure you use it a lot in your promotion. So people are going to be already looking at it and it already pops up. And I'm sure you're already using it for your books as well. So one hand washes the other. So I just wanted to say that, my eye was really drawn to it, almost like a magnet going like, does she does this too? And she works and she writes like she sleeps, right? Like somewhere in there.
Sometimes, yeah.
No, I know, like being an artistic person too, where, and I brought this up to a lot of other writers, and it's hilarious, but also so annoying. Because I see other writers go through this too, and I'm sure you go through it as well. Is if you have either family visiting or you are out with a friend or something at a cafe or a restaurant, and a little lightning bolt zygote of an idea comes into your head, and you're talking, all of a sudden it's just you just drift off,
Oh
and
yeah.
then you're frantically looking for a pen or your phone,
Mhm.
and the other person's doing this.
What
Okay,
planet are you on
I like
exactly?
come back to us. But I've also seen that conversely happen to other people, and I'm going like, oh, you're in it. I'll just grab my phone and I'll just look at the weather for 10 minutes or something.
Right. But it's funny though, because I think it's like when you talk to people or you overhear people, that's when the best lines show up. Like that's when you
Oh,
can
just
like,
out in life. I love well,
I
not
have to write that
necessarily people
down.
watching, but people, oh, just conversations
Yeah.
people have, and I know that you've caught this too, just like at the gas station, just the random crap that
Hmm.
people will yell to each other on either side of a car,
Oh
either
yeah.
just about what's going on at the pump or
Hmm.
what's going on at the little shop there, or if someone needs to use the bathroom. And it's just this little bubble where
Hmm.
you're just standing there, either in your car, waiting to pull up, or you're at your own pump going like this. These people have to know like the volume that they're screaming this stupid crap to each other,
Yeah.
this stupid stuff like well, it's a tragedy because we're only going to be able to get 7 weeks at the condo at Maui this year. Oh, the staff will be so disappointed. And they're like, oh, first world problems.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's funny. I actually grew up in a gas station. My dad and mom ran one for some years, and so yeah, having those kind of characters coming in and out, and you
Everybody
know,
needs gas for their car, right?
yeah,
It's like a
yeah.
grocery store. Everyone's got to eat. Like the first job I had when I was like 16 was at a grocery store.
Mhm.
And you would think that the manager would just be really couth and PC and tell you. And one of the first things he said to me was, "Son, I'm going to tell you like it is. Everyone's got to eat, even the assholes. Good luck out there." I'm like, "What am I getting ready for battle? What the hell is going on?"
Yeah. That's good advice though. Absolutely. So yeah, no,
But
I'm
like successively, other jobs that I've had, especially when I was really young like that, there was just this similar mentality of just like, good luck. I hope you know how to talk to people, and if you get punched for whatever reason, don't punch back. Who's gonna punch me at the grocery store?
never know.
I guess if somebody really wants that beer or that whatever it is on sale, like let them have it. Like the police will find them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, when you were a kid, what first got you interested in writing? Was it more song lyrics or a book that someone gifted to you, or you heard a spoken word album or something like that?
Gosh. Let's see. I would say, and this is kind of silly, but the first book can remember reading and rereading was called Ballet Shoes by Noel Streatfeild. And it's a story about three orphans. And truth be told, I really loved orphan stories when I was a kid. I loved Annie. I loved all these stories, the orphan stories. But um, each of them are brought to a house in somewhere in England, and they don't have much money, but one of them is becomes a gifted dancer, one becomes an actress, and one eventually becomes a pilot. And it's basically a story of like survival through creativity. And I think there was something in there because I loved dancing when I was little. I'm actually taking tap dancing lessons right now because I'm like, for some reason, feeling the pull toward movement.
And you don't sleep. Go ahead.
But I think that that particular book really struck me as something that like like I could do something like that, like pursue something creative and do it for myself, but also find some sort of external recognition or ability out in the world. And so that was, and then what you said about song lyrics, like it's weird because somewhere between the gas station and a clothing store I worked at, like the radio was always on. And like I know a lot of lyrics to a lot of songs,
That's
and most of it's just like this banked like memory. And I can imagine like 30 years from now, suffering from Alzheimer's, I will still know all the words to like "Don't Stop Believin'" or something like that. Or like it's just like, like I don't know. I feel like those are like caked in, even though I don't want to necessarily remember the words to that song. It's still with me. So
Oh yeah, it's just omnipresent. It's always on. But what's interesting though is the stuff that we listened to when we were younger that was just on in background, top 40, and then the stuff that the cooler older brother or sister or brother or sister of a friend or something that introduced us to other things. And I remember first hearing like Desolation Row by Bob Dylan and thinking like, wait, this is possible? Like you can write a song that's like 8 minutes and or I think it's on the same album, It's All Right Mom, Only Bleeding. And I'm like, you can just talk and sing and people were like, yeah, oh. Because when you grow up and it's just all top 40 dance music, there's a lot of stuff in the 80s that I wish I could forget that I went through. And at the time I just kind of like suffered through because I remember being in like middle school and going to these dances and like that Napoleon Dynamite movie where I'm dancing with the girl and I've got my hands on those like crazy puffy shoulder things and I'm like, where do I how do I, this is so
yeah.
dumb, but so funny that it's like you go back to stuff that's like generations before and you go like, oh, there is this whole other subgenre and other stuff going on below the surface of people creating like real art for art's sake,
Oh,
and that gets you into like the Dylan stuff gets you into the Beat Generation and Kerouac and Ginsberg and all that stuff, and then you know other authors as well. But with you being an author of flash fiction, I'm kind of curious, was that more of like initial, when you were younger, like Shel Silverstein kind of influence, or what kind of got you into that kind of writing?
I think that's interesting with shorter pieces. I mean, like I started out doing longer fiction and have kind of come back around to flash fiction. I don't know if you were ever part of the Zoetrope community back in like the 90s. It was like an
I
online
know of the
workshop.
film company, and I know of the magazine. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so they had like this online workshop where if you give feedback, you get feedback. And so I think I was first introduced to the genre in that space, and I was like, oh, flash fiction, something shorter, something more concise. And yeah, I think that's was my first introduction to like these little succinct stories could kind of open up worlds into into someone's experience, imagined or real. So, um, but yeah, I don't know if with poetry, it's like Silverstein. Like I don't know that I mean, I read his work, but I don't know that he
He
was.
was also a songwriter as well, so you had to have heard things like Coconut and A Boy Named Sue.
Mhm.
They
Yeah.
were covered by other artists that were made popular. But what's interesting too, I find about flash fiction, and maybe you'll agree or disagree about this, that I, for whatever reason, some of the flash fiction that really sticks with me is almost kind of what's not said, what's implied, what's left open. Not that every flash fiction piece has to end on a cliffhanger, but just that, you know, 10 to 15 sentences, that's it, that's all you get. And
Mhm.
it can either be the arc of one character or the description of something that's happened. And obviously, the best is it leaves you wanting more.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and there's always that little bit of like that wanting more bit that as a writer, like it's funny because I show all my work to my dad and my mom too, but my dad always has like a kind of like critique about it, and he'll say it's but in a good way, but he'll be
Just
like,
make him sound like he's sitting there like reading a newspaper and like ruffling it.
oh yeah, oh, absolutely a little bit, but it's funny because he's always like with the flash pieces, he's like, well, what happens next? And I'm like,
You're going like this.
that's it. Yeah, well, and that's the thing. You want to leave people with a little bit of anticipation and a little bit of I'm not a mathematician, but a little bit of a math problem to kind of figure out some of the inner logic of a story. And there's been times where I was like, maybe I could write maybe this could be a full-length story, but I do it and like that energy of it is gone. It's like that fully
The
contained
whole
release.
impetus of the thing, like we were talking about getting that little zygote lightning strike of just a germ of an idea. And I think it's okay to have characters that maybe show up in short stories that reappear. That's very popular with like a detective or something like that, where they might not show up in something that's where they're the main character, but they kind of wander through, and that's kind of fun when that happens. But I think flash fiction, it's just about 15 sentences or less, and half of a page or two-thirds of a page, and that's really all you need. So, have you ever performed any of your work at open mics or at readings around the area?
Yeah, yeah. I've had a few readings, here and there. There's a wonderful venue in my town, which is like what luck, called the Word Barn, and
That's so
uh,
great. That's such a great
it
name.
is wonderful. And the best part is that not only do they have like a silo, an actual silo. It's called the Silo Series Readers, and so within the barn, not in the silo, but next to the silo. Sarah Anderson and her husband Ben have created this beautiful space for music and as well as for poets and writers to come and share their work with the community. And so I've been really lucky that I've been able to have a reading there and a few other like open mics and that in grad school and stuff, but nothing too much. But
I'm gonna guess during the last year and a half that you've done the the almost the obligatory now online open mic reading on like a Zoom.
Yeah, there was oh gosh, well, yeah, there's been a few you know, somewhere somehow I'm, reading my work on a Zoom screen and not the same as in person, but it's
God, it is so not the same. I'm thankful that we have the technology, so we can do things like this, and you and I can chat, and you can have a platform, and I can tell really lame jokes in a mint shirt. But also, it's just oh, I've been through some horrible experiences with Zoom chat, whether either the internet connection was not so great on the other part,
yeah.
or if it's hosted, that the host is a little slow on the draw to unmute. Oh God, there's nothing worse than like pouring your heart out, some kind of like unrequited love thing, and you're like 30 seconds into it, and then you find a break in the line, and you come up for a breath from the page, and you just see this.
Yeah.
Like, lady, Jesus Christ, you're killing me. Oh, or the worst is if somebody starts and they're not muted, and then the other person hasn't finished yet, and they just bulldoze right over them, and someone's
hmm
talking about like the death of a family member or something that their grandparents, some kind of wisdom they passed on, and then somebody was just like, it was a blistery day in the desert, like, oh, oh, shut up.
Could
Oh
you not?
God.
Yeah.
And it's like, I get it, we're all human, we make mistakes, but I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if you just need to have one dedicated person that's just sitting there with their finger, like just waiting to
Mhm.
mute, unmute, pause,
Yep.
use those air traffic controller things to. Oh, I'm sure
Yeah.
you've had experiences like that too.
Well, it's funny because as a teacher, I've had to do Zoom school, and actually, we're for
Oh,
these like, right now. We're doing Zoom school again, and my inner like guy smiley game show host like keeps showing up every time I'm on Zoom. Like, hey guys, like I'll play like lively music and try to get. Oh
ba-da-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-da.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I played I'm teaching a travel writing class right now to my seniors, and so I played Johnny Cash's "I've Been Everywhere,"
Oh, that's
which
such a great
was
song.
like, oh my God, it was so good. I was like, I need to learn this one, you know. So
That's a
so
lot of lyrics in like a 4-minute song.
oh yeah,
Just
yeah, no,
naming cities and countries. It's just, it would be, I wouldn't, I don't know. It would be so easy to trip up. Just what if you repeat yourself or you say the same city like, my God, it's like, you have to memorize it. So it's like, did I already say Tulsa? Fuck.
yeah. At
Oh,
that point, you just roll with it, when no one will
at
notice.
this point, I'm just going to say Nebraska 4 times. No one's going to
There
care.
we go. Indiana, Indiana,
Oh
Indiana,
yeah,
Indiana.
or like Saskatchewan, they're like, what? Just go with it.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, so do you have memories of growing up in Canada? Or I don't know how old you were.
No, 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 no. I grew up in Massachusetts,
Oh, but
and
people think you're from Canada.
but my father's side was French Canadian, and at some point,
More like the
someone's
Montreal
father
area or
moved down.
Quebec?
Yeah, from Sherbrooke, Quebec,
Oh, okay.
actually, which I had a chance to drive through once and
I've
looked.
always wanted to go up there. It looks so beautiful in pictures.
It really is, and it looks a little bit like a version of my hometown, which is really strange. It's kind of like tall red brick buildings and like a boulevard street, and I'm thinking, wow, I had no idea. Like coming back to my own
People tell
hometown.
me that Montreal kind of reminds them of Brooklyn, just like a smaller, more
Yeah.
homogenized version of like
Mhm.
suburban New York City, but
Mhm.
I've never been, and it's just one of those things where I'm sure if I got dropped off from a plane in downtown Montreal, my limited French would not save me. Have you ever heard that old Steve Martin bit where he's like, well, I'm going to go to Paris. I'm sure I'm fine. Someone tried to give me a translation book, and I said, hey, I'm fine. All I need is omelette du fromage. That's the only thing he speaks. And so when people come up to him, he just goes,
I hear him right now.
hey. omelette du fromage. What happened? I don't know. Next thing I know, I was at a restaurant and someone poured cheese on a boot and tried to make me eat it. He's helping French. He's speaking French. Someone help him.
The thing is, in Montreal, they're, it's like they speak French, but they're also super polite because they're Canadian. And so if you're at a grocery store or somewhere and you try to speak your high school French, they will immediately like shift into perfect English with no
Yeah.
judgment. And it's just like, and you're humbled, but you're also like, thank you. I don't have
Oh
to like
yeah. I
judge
remember going
this
to
or
Toronto, and I've been to Toronto a bunch of times, to Niagara Falls, and I just remember opening my mouth and saying it, and there's like this polite cringe, like,
hmm
and then like, and if you try to say something in English, and maybe they're a French first language person, and they don't quite get it, they're so immediately retractive and apologetic, and it's always sorry, sorry.
Yeah.
Like what? It's fine. No, sorry, sorry. Like, oh well, I only have this like $20. Can I just tip you this? And they're just like, oh, thank you. I'm like, is everything okay? Sorry, I have to go now. Sorry.
That's great.
But and one of the things I have to say about Canada, which I'm sure I'll catch flack and shit from my American friends, is just it's so clean. It's so safe. It's so well lit, at least in the areas that I've been in. Of Toronto is obviously a major city, but God, just walking. I mean, it's like then you go across the border, back across Niagara Falls into New York State, and you're like, ugh. You just realize, like, my God, they've got free healthcare. They're anyway. I went off on a tangent there, but
Anyway.
um, so let's just say like the transition from when you were in middle school or high school, um, being the nervous kid reading the book report in front of the class with your hand shaking. What was the transition from that through maybe college that you realized I kind of want to do this as a career, or this is what I want to pursue?
Oh, yeah. It's funny. I think I was kind of, I don't know, in high school, I was a bit on the fringe of things. I had like a few good friends, and we found a cafe in a city about 20 minutes away. And as soon as we got our licenses, like that was our thing. And, we'd listen to like punk and ska and like local like bands and like really get into all of the whole like alternative scene of the early mid 90s. And so like and weirdly enough, like I was also like a cheerleader freshman year of high school, so like there were these like different range of identities I think I was trying on at the time. And I loved acting, and I was in show choir, and I sang and performed, so there was all sorts of like different interests that I had. And weirdly, as I got into college, I became a little bit more introverted and kind of interested in journalism specifically. I knew I liked creative writing, but I also knew that kind of growing up in this very practical way, like if I like to write, I should be a journalist because you can get a job with benefits as a journalist. And so that kind of like working class mentality of like, um, there's something I like to do, but I also need to make money in a very practical way. So there's this like practical side to my personality that I don't know where it shows up. But my mom always said I'd be a teacher. I didn't believe her. And then,
And
mom was right. So
but she's got to be so thrilled. It's like you've got the steady work, you've got the benefits, and you're helping to shape young minds.
yeah, and I have to say it really is probably the right job for me. As a journalist, I was in newspapers right before the digital like wave
You're
came
in
out.
what we refer to as the golden age before
Yeah,
the machines took over.
literally. I mean, like, I was like, you would never bring a laptop to a meeting. Like, they didn't even exist, or if they did, they were super expensive. And so, um, like, after a town meeting or something, you would drive back to the newsroom and type it up on the computer based on your handwritten notes. So it's a very different
Oh,
time.
I miss that, and I miss. I'm going to sound 8,000 years old, but I actually miss talking to someone and saying to them like, oh well, I've got to work, but if you want to like change the time or the plans, just leave a message on my answering machine. And then they're like, okay, cool. Or like when I had like a beeper or something, which is so ridiculous because I don't know why I had one of those in the 90s, a pager. So
Oh yeah.
dumb. But I mean, not that I'm going to poo-poo a cell phone because you have, well, the joke is that we have like the history of the world's, you know,
Right.
everything, and then we just spend time looking at silly cat videos.
Pretty much. Yeah. No, it's
We're
good.
just like, fill
I
my
have to
time,
admit.
fill my time. But I was talking to another writer the other day on a different episode, and I think everybody of a certain age just has the same um, mentality of just loving physical books, just the way that they feel, the way that they smell, just being able to have one and open the pages and sit under a lamp on your couch and just get immersed in the world. Because obviously, you can download what like 5,000 books onto a an iPad or something. It's just not the same, and your eyes get super tired watching the screen, and it's just I just love the idea of books, and we can do great things now. We can use recycled paper and everything. So I don't know. I feel like everybody 17 on down is just over physical books. They're just over it, which makes me sad.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. My partner uses a Kindle, and I'm just kind of like, I see the logic of it, and I see the
Yeah,
wisdom of it. Like if we travel, like I've got a stack of books, and he has a thin little thing that he takes, and so, but or even with like grading papers, like I want the physical copy because I want to interact with it. I don't want to be looking at a screen. So it's definitely a different type of experience. Kind of, and I wonder if there's something like, how they say when you write with your hand, you're using different parts of your brain than
muscle
when you're,
memory.
and I'm wondering if it's something a little bit similar where if you're reading on from a screen versus like reading on the page. Um, I mean, I know when I read something on the page, I catch all the typos. When I'm reading on a screen, I'm like, oh, this is fine. It
It's
works.
fine. It just looks like they typed it with their elbows. I'm sure it's fine.
It's fine.
I'm
Yeah.
sure they just dragged their elbow across, hit their forehead on the space bar, and it's fine. But there's just something about a book. I don't know. There's just something about being able to take it with you. And this makes no sense, but it's kind of like if you're at the beach or the pool or in a mountain in like a snowy resort or a cabin or something. I don't know what it is. Something about the paperback book that if it gets wet or damaged, you can just get another one.
Mhm.
I would, I'm not saying I'm completely Butterfingers or something, but I can't imagine going on like a long trip in the middle of nowhere and then, oh my God, what if you don't pack enough batteries or power cords and then you're shit out of luck. It's like, well, that one paperback book in the
Mhm.
bottom of your suitcase could
Yeah.
have sustained you for like an entire week.
Yeah. No doubt. And I think the same thing about notebooks too. Like whenever I go to any event, like I bring my notebook with me. And, it's one of those things that maybe it's from my journalism time but like I don't feel like I could like the phone notes don't have that same feeling. I can't like flip back to it. I don't know. I always bring my little notebook with me as a way of when you hear something or you want to write something down or the little flash pops in, you've
It's
got your notebook.
interesting though, with the phone, when putting notes in the phone, I will occasionally go back and scroll through and like, oh, that's a good line, or oh, that was something I started, I should finish that. But it doesn't have that living, vital urgency, and it speaks more to me of like a food recipe I should try if I ever want to get around to it or something like on that level of like, meh, if I get around to it. Whereas if I'm grabbing like, I don't know, if I'm at a restaurant or something, I'm just pushing people and children out of the way to get a napkin so I can write something with a pen. It's like clearly something in me is saying, fucking write this down right now. It's you this is going to be something you're going to want to really focus on and share with the world. And like you were saying too, the muscle memory is a huge part of it. Because I feel like with notes in cell phones, there's like this element of being a gerbil, of just getting in the wheel or drinking the water because you're supposed to, and walking around the perimeter of the cage because you're supposed to. Whereas seeking out whatever parchment, whatever you're going to write on the road with your false start, whatever you got to do to get it, it's clearly uh, pulling at your heartstrings, and it's just like you have to stop everything, and because as a writer, like some of these things are very fleeting.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like the muse absolutely shows up, but you've got to be ready when she chooses to, and you can't choose when she shows up. So, um, it's funny. For some time, I had a daily writing practice, and and most of it would be crap writing. It's just nothing that you'd want. And then once in a while, like you find a line or you remember a line and you hook into it, and you're like, ah, this is the thing I meant to be writing. And or sometimes my partner and I would spend a month, just the month of February, writing a prompt where we would send each other like a word or something, and then we would have to respond to it in some way throughout the course of the month. And so you'd end up with 30 or 28, however many days there were in the month, stories. Even if they weren't great, there was something you could work with. And I
Yeah,
think that,
because you're forcing your brain to think outside of the box, and also just to get in the habit of physically doing it. Because I did that the poetry thing last year, which is like write 30 poems in 30 days.
oh yeah.
And yeah, about halfway through the month, I was like, I have ideas, but they're terrible. So I'm glad that I was seeking out some prompts and stuff as well. But for me, like short stories, sometimes it's the dead fish parable where it's like you can't always get to finish it in one sitting, and you've got to come back. Sometimes it's 3, 5, 8 days later, and you pick it up and you go, oh, I don't even know what I was thinking, and I don't know what this other character was doing, and what was some secret you were supposed to tell this other person that unraveled the I guess I'll just plow through it. But for me, like a poem, it's like I've got to sit down and write the whole thing in one sitting.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like it's just, if I've got to be laser focused, turn off the ringer on my phone and just do it. But before I forget, I wanted to give you a chance to read a couple of pieces before we get on too many tangents here.
Yeah, sure. Let me see.
Just grab a napkin. I'm sure there's one around.
Yeah, there are. How about, um, 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 okay, how about, let's say, I've got a few pieces. I mean, yeah, let's try, this one's called Why We Stole the Disco Ball from
Oh,
Satellite.
where's your disco ball? Yeah.
Let's see. This is the story. Why We Stole the Disco Ball from Satellite Scape. Before our dad died, the dangling ball used to sparkle in the middle of the rink as we careened around it in semi-dark, the light rotation beaming off the globe in a spray of shine and color. It made our pink shirts shimmer. And on the Saturday after, Mom tried to help us forget by bringing us back to the rink, treating even for the skate all day Milky Way special. She used to run the marina, so she laced my skates tight, like my feet were still the boat and the skates were still the moor. I'm not a boat, I wanted to tell her, but she looked too worried to worry about my skates. And when she sent me off to the rink to join my sister, Jackie took my hand as usual, but wouldn't look at me because she didn't know what to say or how to look, and that was okay because neither did I. The DJ proclaimed it opposite day and made the whole rink skate backwards as he played Celebrate and Lucky Star in reverse, song after song. And with all of us not seeing where we were going, we kept colliding in the glittering rink. And even though we'd changed directions, the ball in the middle didn't, and the spray of light moved with us, not against. And for a minute, the ball looked like one of those satellites they tossed up into space to take pictures of the Earth, sending cable signals from heaven so we can have 500 channels on the TV. And then as the end of Thriller began, I thought maybe this sparkle ball was a time machine, and all we had to do was skate backwards long enough to undo the awful of the awful week. And maybe if Jackie and I could hook into one of the light's tiny beads, follow it across the floor, over the skaters, and onto the ceiling, that we could somehow skate inside it and slip into the time before, when we perpetually hurled forward into everything, never once considering how or why we'd ever want to travel back.
Wow, very nice.
And here's the disco ball.
That's so great.
And maybe this was
From the Beatles
stolen,
time.
and maybe it was $5 at the Christmas tree shop, but I will never tell. So
That is so great. Like you should literally just have that hanging from every time you do like a Zoom, and people are like, "What the?" And you're like, "Just deal with it."
maybe I will. There's
Why not? I mean, just to add a little bit of fun to it, you know?
a little flair, yes, a little disco ball flair. So yeah.
Nice. So is that piece in the book that's forthcoming, or
No, that's from Sugar Mountain, which is a very slender volume of flash fiction pieces, and then but the book that's forthcoming is called Proof of Me, and it's actually it's a full length collection. It's and with full length stories, not flash pieces, so it's a bit.
it's hard to read short stories in a short Zoom? But I mean, um, are all of these available on Amazon for people to find?
Um, they will, I believe, Sugar Mountain is on Amazon, and I know Proof of Me is on bookshop.org as well as the Barnes and Noble site. And I know like Amazon is forthcoming, but right now those are the two places. Because actually, Proof of Me is not being launched until the
March, right?
24th in March. Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully in
I
Philadelphia.
read I read
There'll
a
be
little bit. I mean, and this whole thing was kind of kamikaze crash course, but yeah, I mean, I read certain things.
yeah, and I'm hoping it will happen, pandemic notwithstanding. So my hope is that it'll be an in-person
I hope
celebration.
so. I mean, but you have like such a great personality that if you have to do an online reading, I'm sure it'll go fine, and people will grab them off the digital bookshelf.
I hope so. We'll see. Yeah.
All right, what do you have next for us?
Um, let's see. How about um oh gosh, there's so many weird little pieces to think about. Um, how This is the part you can edit out because
Oh,
um
I know. I didn't really give you that much prep time,
that's
but
okay.
kind of makes it fun.
Oh, I know. Let's do the opening of the Ghost Rider. Um, so yeah, this is just the opening to one of the longer pieces. It's called The Ghost Rider, um, named after oh my gosh. Yeah, it's another Johnny Cash song, Ghost Riders in the Sky.
Yeah,
Uh,
I know that one too.
yep. So, and yeah, the heart of the story is, well, I'll just let you figure it out. Never mind.
Yeah,
Here we
yeah, no preamble.
The Ghost Rider. Um, no one outside Nashville had ever heard of Billy Dice's All Stars until last night when our drummer, Marty Marshall, fell through the plate glass window down at Clyde's Country Corner. People these days always got their cameras out, so we figure the more they film Billy Dice and us All Stars, the better we look. And the better we look, the more they'll tip. So when we cleared the stage for Marty to hit his mega solo during Ghost Riders in the Sky, he tilted back on the hind leg of his tripod stool and rose up, arcing his arms for a double cymbal shimber to close it out. And that was it. A YouTube sensation born within the hour. The whole world, or eventually 360,000 of us, watched as he crashed back onto the massive window behind him, tumbling in a glitter glass shatter out onto the street, taking the neon Bud Light sign with him, and toppling a handful of Stetson-toting tourist girls in their Daisy Dukes and $900 boots like a strike in a bowling alley. They mostly darted out of Marty's way as he tumbled down, screeching the screech of a viral internet sensation, and still screeching, stuck their phones into Marty's face as he lay there on the sidewalk. And if that wasn't bad enough, Billy Dice poked his head out the window after Marty, his vocal mic still looped into the sound system, and said, with laser precision timing, "I was just thinking that drum was a hair too loud." When Billy Dice heard himself and amplified through the din as laughter erupted, he got decent. "Hey, Marty, you all right?" Just as the bouncer cleared the huddled filming phone crowd and made way for the on-call medics. As far as tragedies goes, you couldn't have planned it any better. Marty turned out all right in spite of everything. The screeching tourist cowgirls actually helped break his fall. After the medics checked Marty's vitals, they stood him up, brushed the excess glass off his vest, and sent him back inside to finish the set. "A real card-carrying union dude," Billy Dice said later of Marty, between sips of whiskey. "Gotta get paid, man," Marty said to his beer. So that's the opening of that.
Wow, I'm going to give you a pretty great compliment here and kind of I want to say that it really, especially the kind of like the swaggering delivery and the kind of vibe that I got of the description, it really had kind of an Elmore Leonard kind of feel to it.
Ooh, that's fun. Thank you. That's really. I had a lot of fun writing this piece, I gotta say. Um, Inspired by an actual, my first trip down to Nashville, Tennessee, and going to Robert's Western World, which was
Oh,
just
nice.
a plus place to go. Um, let's see. If you like, I could read a little bit further up where the narrator has just had a rough night, but he's the show's over, and the owner of the store invites him in because he's back trying to find a note that had been given to him that he lost on stage.
Sure.
So
Whatever you want. Yeah.
sure, he says, "Hmm, yeah, all right." Um, "Come round, I'll unlock the door," he said. He edged his way down the stage steps, sidestepping like a crab. The contract burned on my hip like a sterno flare. A contract? What was Sage thinking, tossing her news at me on like that on stage? I imagined her some sky-high third-man condo party, and for once wished she had a cell phone. I wanted to track her down, but Clyde had summons me. The bloom of his body odor greeted me as I grabbed my guitar and walked in. "Jesus, boy, you stink," he said. He hit a few lights and found an old Loretta Lynn cassette and popped it on. The sound system designed for the Billy Dice All-Stars now carried the great-grandmother of country. "Hey, I got a joke for you," Clyde said, belching out the last of his beer. He fixed us up to George Dickel's neat, just as I needed. "What do you call a guitarist with no girlfriend?" he asked. Ugh, another one of those old sob bullshit musician jokes. "Homeless," I said, cutting him off at the pass. Clyde let out a jackass laugh, forcing me in a cracked smile. "Can't pull one on you," he said. "You have no idea." The Dickel was smooth enough, given the circumstances. I never really talked to Clyde before one-on-one, so we let Loretta's twang fill the quiet between us. "Talk about homeless," Clyde said, nodding up at the line of posters. "You know about George Jones back in the late 70s? Lived out of his car right up here a block or two. Liquid diet. Kept an old cardboard cutout of Hank Williams in the front seat just to have someone to talk to. I guess Tammy was long gone." "Oh, you bet she was," he said. He switched the tape to Golden Ring. Man, he weighed no more than 100 pounds at the time. We'd watch him stumbling around the strip looking for his next gig, showing up 2 hours late, if at all. Scary shit. I'd give anything to know what old Possum said to Cardboard Hank. As we listened to George and Tammy going at it on the cassette, it hit me. Sage and I never actually played a song together. I got up to leave. "Hey, you seen Martin's crash video?" he said. "I seen a lot in my time." I rocked on my stool, itching to clear out. What would we sing? And then let's pause there.
Nice. So I take it you're a country music fan.
Yeah, I am.
Have you heard the album that Jack White made with Loretta Lynn? It's called Van Lear Rose. It's about
ah,
now maybe 15 years old, but it was just great that their styles meshed, and he produced the album and he played guitar on the album, and they actually have a duet called Portland, Oregon. One of the stories around the time that the album came out was great, where Jack White talked about, you know, growing up in like urban Detroit and in the 90s, and it was just a burned out hellhole, and you wouldn't want your best friend to meet you on a street corner there, you'd get shot, you know. And he's like, so he's like, I've been through a lot and I've got my ass kicked a few times and this and that. And I thought I was kind of tough. He's like, then I met Loretta Lynn.
Wow.
He said the stories that he said he heard from her about, you know, having to play, it basically was a man's world in the early to mid 60s and playing at those places in the surrounding areas where they were just like roadhouses with chicken wire, and guys are throwing glass beer bottles, breaking them against the chicken wire, and going home smelling like a pitcher of
Cover
beer every
style.
night.
Yeah.
He was just like, yeah, I thought I was a badass, and then I met her, and he's like, I think I had to turn in my man card.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, she is fierce. I
She's
had a
got to be
chance,
what, 80 now?
probably a little older than like I'd say give her mid 80s or so. I had a chance to see her in Webster, Massachusetts of all places, and it felt very iconic to just watch one of the, you know, grandmothers of country music just do her thing. And you know, and she sat the whole time, and it was really sweet. She had her some of her kids were kind of like in her backup band and like backup singers, and you know, her voice was still there, you know, and
Yeah,
it's
I haven't heard recent stuff, but that album that came out, like I said, about 15 years ago, she was still doing it. And man, like you could just tell by her voice that it's just like, this woman takes shit from no one.
yeah. Yeah, no, no. Her hard as nails attitude. Like I was in a band for a little bit. It was a kind of mostly country cover band, but we you know, I sang One's on the Way like quite a bit, going back to Silverstein, who wrote that
Yeah,
song. I like how things come full circle,
right.
um, but yeah, that's you know, getting a feel for like, you know, I don't know that like it's such a feminist song, and yet, you know, a voice of protest, like One's on the Way, and you know, all of the things that she's struggling with, and you know, with all the kids and the absent husband, and yet she's there's a lot of fortitude and strength in that song that I really love. You know, the pill may change the world tomorrow, meanwhile today here in Topeka, you know, like, and she's got to like keep going on with all of the work that she has to do. You know, the speaker of the song at least. So
Yeah, yeah, it's great. I just thought that if you haven't heard that album, you should.
I
I'm
will
sure the
check
whole
it out.
thing's
I'm
free
ready.
on YouTube. You can listen to the whole thing for free. It's just called Van Leer Rose, just 3 words.
All right.
That Portland, Oregon song is great, but I remember a couple of years ago I played it for my parents and they were like, "Is this an instrumental? Because it has a really long intro." And I'm like, "No, it's just Jack White. He's just like noodling, getting into the song." And then once they heard her voice, they were like, "This is Loretta Lynn." And I'm like, "I told
Yeah.
you." But I love collaborations like that, like people that normally wouldn't work together and then just completely opposite, and then they kind of create this new thing out of it
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
wouldn't expect.
And the whole like crossover idea, you know, of like exposing a whole new generation of listeners to Loretta Lynn via Jack, you know, Jack White. And I think that's so important that you've got this like the lineage factor. It's like, okay, you know, I watched, you know, I was among those people who found someone with was it a Disney account, and like watched all of the Beatles.
Oh my God, the thing was great.
It was amazing. And what I loved about that was how, first of all, like I appreciated the slowness of it and the way you could.
Just how it unraveled organically. Yeah.
I've always thought about that, like how much as listeners, and maybe you, but I have like kind of take songs like that for granted, like the genius of it and the way, and like watching something form of uh, these four guys kind of coming together, and they're having their personal things going on, but yet they're still like working and doing the thing and that they need to be doing.
And there's no Pro Tools. There's no, you know, they had multi-tracks, but they didn't have an unlimited amount of tracks. So the thing that blows my mind is talking about that documentary, knowing that I think the White Album came out in like October or November of 68.
Mhm.
69, January, they're back doing the Let It Be Get Back stuff. And then in the end of February, beginning of March of 69, they were recording Abbey Road.
Mhm. Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
were putting out singles that weren't on albums. And they're doing promotional videos. And they're doing stuff like Yellow Submarine. And it's just like, no wonder these guys were just like what was great about the documentary is it proved they never really hated each other. It's just they had to get off the merry-go-round because it was burning them out.
Sid. Yeah. Um,
Or like
and
when Harrison's like, I have, if the Beatles stay together, I have enough songs saved up. I could have 4 songs on every album for the next 10 years.
yeah. Yeah. And what I loved about that, just as someone who kind of dips their foot in all different types of creative expression, is to like trust the process, like play, goof around.
Have a riff or a piano melody and
Yep.
just come up with silly nonsense stuff. Or the part in the first section when Ringo and George are looking bored and they're waiting for John to show up, and then you see McCartney and he's playing his guitar and he just goes na, 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 and it just shows this editing montage of him and it's slowly becoming Get Back, and you're like, he's just fucking writing this song to them in front of them, and they're just, because they've seen it so much, they've seen it like day after day, year after year of him or Lennon or whoever just coming in with like a riff or a melody and then they just work it up. And to us as audience members, we're just like, it can't be that easy.
Right. But it
Some
is.
people,
I think.
they're tuned in, they have their process, they like, oh, I have 3 things I want to work on, all right, first one, let's go, no 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 no, oh, okay, that's better, and then it's just on and on and on and on.
And I think that comes with, I mean, a type of trusting that process and having the confidence to trust yourself, and that like I have this idea, I want to see it through. I think that's the thing that holds up so many people. And I'm not saying that like if you
Yeah,
just
you
do
got to
it,
get yourself out of your way.
but like there's so much, our inner voices of self-doubt is what can sometimes stop us from doing the thing that we want to do, even though we want to do it. Or everything we have to, that has to come out of us, has to be like beautiful and accomplished. It's like, no, it doesn't. It can be.
No, I mean, you saw that documentary where they're going through whatever the updated catalog of their publishing,
Hmm.
and they had like 500 things that were just fragments that never became songs.
Yeah.
But because they're recorded and they're stored and they're cataloged, they still earn publishing because at some point they might be used for something else years and years down the line.
Oh yeah.
And just, that at one point George said, like, Ringo, do you want to come and hear what you have 1/2 of 1% share of? And
Hmm.
just the depression of going
Yeah.
like, God, talk about a jab. But I'm sure at some point in your life you've seen Family Guy,
Hmm.
and they did a spoof of Ringo writing Octopus's Garden, and so Paul and George are working on something, and then the cartoon character of Ringo comes in and he says like, well, I've got a new one, fellas. I've got a song about an octopus. And then the Paul character goes, oh, that's lovely. Oh, that's precious. Oh, let's just take this. And he takes the sheet of paper, and Ringo's going like, what? And then Paul walks over and goes, okay, okay, let's just put this on the fridge with the other ones. Look around there, next to the macaroni are. And the guy that the cartoon of George is just going like, holy shit. And then
Uh-huh.
because it like, what an insurmountable amount of like nerves and just balls to be able to come into the presence of those 2 guys that are just fucking hit writing machines, and to be like, and they're just like, yeah,
Octopus?
put it with the other ones, we'll look at your crayon drawing later.
That's great. I love that octopus song actually.
Me too, it's super catchy.
It's, yeah. No, it's I like to snorkel, so that's like a song I sing when I go out and snorkeling
And
looking.
it's fun to sing like when you're under the water too. So
Oh my God, that's hilarious. But yeah, no, it's funny. I mean, it's like I had a going back to like the that kind of creative process thing. I had in college, I had friends who were in a band, and one of them was like an expert noodler. Like he would just play the guitar, and it would just like whatever would come out would be some version of
some
Wayne.
Frank Zappa craziness that you're like, it's genius. I don't know what it means.
Well, and so the other friend in the band like knew this, and so he would just put the recorder on and like wait, like wait and let the 2 hour session happen, and then he would go back and mine it, and then like take out sections that he thought could be worked into songs, and that's how they collaborated. And it wasn't like the guitarist, so it was like planning to sing like write a song, but like the other one had this like the editor's mind and the stylist's mind, and he was able to like select from the
Oh
front.
yeah, just to just mentally reach in and find like that 4 to 7 minutes that you can work with from the noodling.
Yeah,
Do you
exactly.
yourself play instruments or?
Oh yeah, yeah. I learned how to play guitar, oh maybe 15 years ago. So play guitar. I love to sing like quite a bit.
Nice. What kind of stuff? Country or folk or?
All of it, literally like all of it.
That's
I've
great. Have you
I've
played out like at open mics and things?
Yep, yeah. I was at when I was at Bennington. Went to grad school there for the writing seminars, and there was a country cover band that got formed with a few different writers and folks associated with the program. And so the project every residency, because it's a low residency program, was like you'd show up, and in 10 days you would have like a show basically that would be performed at the last night, and it was a lot of fun. And we were able to play in a couple of venues in New York at one point. We played down in Florida once at like and it's nothing that um I mean the pandemic has basically ruined all sorts of people
But
getting
I
together.
mean, now is the time. I feel like I'm like your instructor now, your guru. Now is the time that, if we go, oh God, I hope we don't go into another lockdown, but to focus on getting out that acoustic guitar and writing your own stuff. And clearly you have the gift for writing. Like me personally, I play guitar as well, but I'm not anywhere near like that insane two hands on the fretboard Eddie Van Halen shredding, or I'm
Oh,
much more mid-tempo, easy paced. But what's nice for me is I used to perform out and sing out and write my own stuff, and now since I do so much other stuff with acting and filmmaking and writing and stuff like that, and this show, I kind of hold that back a little bit for me now. And so sometimes it's just nice to come home after a long crappy day and just turn my ringer off and sit down and just strum some chords, just as like a decompressor or as like a relaxer. And then sometimes like a little melody will come up and I'll think of something original. Not all the time, but it's because it's not forced and I'm not trying to make that hit record or whatever.
yeah, and yeah, no, I have written a couple songs, and there's two that I'm like and like kind of think of as nice, good songs, but it's I kind of just appreciate like, what you were saying, like the de-stress aspect of it. Like when I was in grad school for fiction writing, like I would sometimes, how you kind of paint yourself into a creative corner and you don't know where to go from there, and you're like, I would pick up my guitar and I would just start like noodling and like kind of figuring out songs and stuff. And there's something about that. I don't know, music has an order to it that I think our brains like and adhere to. And there's something I think that would free up my brain in a way, if I played enough, that the thing that I was trying so hard to solve or think about or fix, um, I would be able to kind of come back to it with a fresh brain. And so it's a bit like a palate cleanser, you know?
It is, but also what I find, and I used to be able to noodle around on a keyboard or something, but just I've moved so many times in my life, and a keyboard, like I said, I'm trying to. We're getting so many things that require batteries and power cords. That's just, I think I sold that or gave it away years ago. But what's nice about an acoustic guitar is it's not plugged in. It doesn't require batteries,
Yep.
and it's wood. It's really organic, and it's just, I don't know. It's something about it reminds me of going to like a park or something and being back in nature. I know that sounds really
Oh, yeah, no, no, no.
hoity-toity or something, but there's just something really relaxing about it. It also kind of, I feel like, connected to more of like a lineage of like songwriters, knowing that no matter what you write or whatever kind of chord structure maybe you'll stumble across, like it starts very simply, just tapping your foot and strumming the chords. And the worst is always, I mean, I've had roommates and friends in my past that have perfect pitch. Great for them, bad for me, because nothing like trying to like work through something from some tablature you've gotten out of the back of a magazine, and you're squinting and trying to, and then you have your door open and somebody walks by in the hallway like, you're flat. I'm like, fuck
Yeah.
you. And you just, you're like so close, you're like, really, just let me, God, please work on it, fucker. Um, or somebody, I've had another roommate that just do the same thing and walk past the open door in the hallway and just be like, really, that chord? I'm like, fuck, shut up. Their mind, it's like a math equation. They've already got it figured out, and they know, anything out of that box of that math equation is nails on a chalkboard. But for me, I'm trying to stumble into it. I'm trying to find
Yep.
it. The voicing, or might be a different chord voicing. So I know you've probably been through all that too.
Yeah, well, and I think for me, I think my whole attitude about like literally all of it is just to like take an attitude of play and not have much expectation about outcomes or like, oh, this is going to be a big hit or I can sell this or like once the money thing comes in, it feels like a different part of your brain is working like and when I
Somebody that I know that does that sort of, not completely for a living, but makes money at it, actually told me it's like you have to turn your brain off, because you're never gonna, if you love making music, you're never gonna want to not do it. But
Mhm.
there's the office 8 to 5 jingle writing, and
Mhm.
then there's the what did he say? Then there's the shit we do on Friday and Saturday nights. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yep.
There's that, you got to meet with a partner or two other people, and you've got a piano and a
Mhm.
guitar, and you got, so much time to come up with, how can we sell Meow Mix today,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah,
you've got the thing where it's like, what, Friday and Saturday nights are for us to just put our hair down and just go for it.
exactly. Yeah. It's funny, my first job out of college was at an advertising agency and like it felt really weird to put my creativity to work in a way that was like for something that I wasn't fully behind or would naturally want to like have to think about. And I realized I wasn't like good at that. Like I was just like, this is not really for me. But
They're
and
like,
there was
we're giving you money, why don't you want to like dance and sing a song? They're like, wait, what now?
kind of good, thanks. But
Pass.
yeah, no, journalism seemed a little bit more in line with my ethos and interests and I love talking to people and learning of new things and I really feel like my first few years as a reporter were it was like going to grad school like for the first time in my life I knew how a taxed like how like local taxes worked or like what a berm was and why people got mad about wetlands and like it's just like all these things of everyday life that affect so many people in so many ways that and there was some part of my brain somewhere that was like oh I can use this for my own knowledge but also some of my own creativity and finding an authenticity of facts as well as story, like what people really get mad about. Like there's a scene in one of the stories I wrote where there's a demolition derby happening, and this is kind of based on my dad was in a demolition derby when I was a little kid, and I remember like hitting a hammer on one of the back windshield, but I misremembered and I put it on the front windshield. And so in my story, the little girl is like hitting the front windshield with a hammer. And my dad, Mr. Harumph, said, actually, in a demolition derby, you would knock out all the windows except the front windshield because it's a safety issue because you wouldn't want something flying into the front of the car. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. And so like that detail got changed pretty quickly. And so to the back windshield versus the front windshield. But like, so like knowing those little things about the way things actually work. Like in that same story, I was like, so dad, if someone were to put a car in a flatbed truck and the car wasn't secured, right? What would happen, right? Like, how would that work? What would you have to not do for that to happen? Because I wanted it to happen. And so, like, he'd explain it to me. And so, so those kinds of like real life things that happen that, like, I'm not a mechanic. I don't know how these things work. If you can, as a reporter or as someone's, a mechanic's kid, you can ask those questions and get the things you need. Like, I wrote a story about a boat that had been dry docked, and I was taking a ferry somewhere, and it was late, and I was talking to the harbor master about it, and he's like, I was like, well, what's the name of this part of a boat? And he's like, you know what? Let's go to the marina. I'll tell you anything you want. And so like we actually drove out to the like a place where there was like a lot of like working boats that I really needed to like know the names of things. And he showed me around and was like telling me like all the things I needed to know for the story I was writing. And so
And that
yeah,
would it probably gave him a little bit of a thrill because it's not like you're asking like, how do I mix concrete? You're asking something that he's genuinely interested in. And I just know that when somebody asks me about something that I'm genuinely interested in, and it's not work and it's not pulling teeth or something, it's fun to talk about.
yeah, exactly. And not it's not everybody every day someone like comes and asks you about like, oh, what's the name of the second, thing about like I don't know, sail above this part, and like what do you really call a kitchen a galley, and and like those kinds of
You should have
questions.
just told him like, I'm working on a murder mystery podcast.
Exactly.
I need to know this for later. Um, but I can't believe it, but I think we've been gabbing for about an hour. So I wanted to kind of give
Oh my
you
gosh.
a couple of moments here to just tell people where they can find your writing, like your website and
Sure.
Amazon and your social media.
Yeah, so I've got a book that's forthcoming. It's called Proof of Me. It is a short story collection that received the New American Fiction Prize. I think it's 2020 to 21. And that'll be that's available through bookshop.com as well as barnesandnoble.com and eventually on Amazon. And then Sugar Mountain, which is a wonderful little British press, ad hoc fiction, and that is available on Amazon, and so you can find those too. And I have a couple other short piece books, but they're not available unless you contact me, and that would be Heard Around Town, which is my first little chat book. It's such a cute book.
Awesome.
Yeah, and anyway, and my website is Erica Plouffe Lazure. All three evil villain.
That's not evil, it's exotic. Exotic, not evil.
Well, maybe not evil, not totally evil, like mostly evil.
I don't mean like Dr. Evil.
Doctor Evil.
I didn't go through 7 years of evil medical school for nothing, right?
I'm so glad Doctor Evil has made an appearance in this meeting. So thank you.
I mean, it's so fun to just say things like, but what happened? I had the group liquidated, you little shit.
It is an evil
Ridiculous
position.
things that no one would ever say that just make complete sense with a shaved head, villain with a monocle and a cat, a shaved cat, you know? It's great. But I wanted to thank you for coming on the show, and I
Eric, this
may
is
be
wonderful. So,
following up with you off camera, maybe about some possible artwork stuff, but not ready to quite talk about that stuff on camera yet. So I will let you go. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the folks?
no, just thank you so much for your time and attention, and really look forward to sharing this conversation with others. So, thank you. Take
Thank you
care.
so much. You've been awesome, and you have a great rest of your weekend.
You too. Take care. Bye.
Bye bye now.